It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Hello. Hopefully everybody is well. I'm like orchestrating a bunch of different stuff here. I got Instagram over here. I got Facebook, got YouTube. Why do I do all this different stuff? I don't know, but hello to everybody. Let's hope this goes well. I'm going to try to pay attention to everything that I can. I see a lot of people in the YouTube chat, see a bunch of people in the Instagram popping up right now, see a bunch of people on Facebook. So hello to everybody. Hopefully you guys are doing well. See lots of great normal people in the chat. All the regulars are in there. Lots of great people. So thanks so much for all the support, for coming in here to listen to me ramble on about whatever I usually ramble on about. It's usually a bunch of baloney, but you know, here we are. So we do have a bunch of new viewers. I've been getting a lot of comments, YouTube and different things like that. And for the people that are watching that are regulars, I apologize, but I'm going to go through a little intro here. So my name is Chris, and I'm just an HVACR service technician here in Southern California. Run a small business, and I found myself in a place where I needed to train several technicians due to much fault of my own at the same time. Started making videos on YouTube, never really intending on making them public, and then kind of hit the public thing eventually, and it turned into what it's turned into. It's been we're going on 5 years now, I think. So November of 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 20. Yeah, it'll be 5 years in November that we've been doing YouTube. And then the live streams, those came pretty quick too. So I think the live stream started right quick. And, you know, the whole point why I started doing the Q&A live stream like this is because I found myself answering the same questions over and over and over again. And I just found it easier to answer them in a live format. So like today, I have a few things on my list. My list isn't super long today, but, you know, a few things on my list. So if you guys have questions, things that you want me to talk about, feel free to put them in the chat. You can put them on Instagram. You can put them on YouTube, whatever, Facebook. Just make sure, try to throw them in caps lock because it helps them to distinguish from just the normal conversation. Because especially on YouTube, there's a bunch of people in the YouTube chat right now and they're all having their own conversations, which is fine. Like that's kind of how the YouTube chats work. Like oftentimes there's a conversation going on. People are answering questions and different things. So yeah, feel free to put questions in there, put them in caps lock if you can, and we'll try to get to them. So again, hello to everybody that's going, that's everywhere. Actually, it's a little different. So I was trying to, I was playing around with Instagram today, trying to figure out if I can, you know, stream to Instagram from my live streaming software, and you can, but it's a pain in the butt and the video format's not right. So I'm just doing Instagram on my phone. So let's see how this goes. So as usual, like I said, got a bunch of questions to answer. Let's look in the chat and see what's going on in here. I'm seeing if I'm missing anything. When is the last time I have had a filter so plugged that it looked like a piece of wood? Oh, I don't know. I mean, honestly, that stuff happens so often now that I don't even remember it anymore. It's hard to even, you know, it's just, I'm so used to seeing weird stuff that sometimes I have to remind myself, hey, you should take a picture of this. So I don't know. I see a lot of dirty filters quite often, filters that have become bonded with the evaporator coil because they're completely sucked up against it and the evaporator soaking wet. Definitely seen that. So let's see. I'm seeing if I'm missing anything in here so far. Reading through here. Yeah, not seeing anything yet. Cool. All right. What are compressors made of? Fisher is asking. Compressors are made of lots of different metal, and they just basically welded together, pressed together in different ways. They've got different mechanical parts in it. Scroll compressors are different from reciprocating compressors, which are different from screw compressors. I mean, there's so many different types of compressors, but typically they're all made of different types of metals, and it's the parts inside that are pretty cool. So, you know, I encourage everybody out there, just like you guys have seen on my videos, start, you know, cutting things apart. When you replace a compressor, like scroll compressors, like, you know, start cutting them apart and you'll start to notice weird things. So I'll show this to Instagram right now. If you look at the top of that scroll plate, you can see some little galling going on there. Okay. And if you guys look on YouTube right here, you guys can see the little rings in the top right in there. That's galling. And then you can actually see that inside of here too, inside the scroll plate. Inside the scroll plate, there's the little silver rings in there. That's typically from flooded starts, right? The first time I saw that, I was like, what the heck? Did something get stuck inside that compressor? Now, this is a scroll compressor that I replaced. I pulled it apart, cleaned it up, dried it up, put a degreaser on it, got it to where I can handle it with my hands and it doesn't get me all dirty. But I encourage everybody out there to take things apart. I still don't completely understand how everything works, but taking things apart, you start to notice things like, hey, when this compressor is failing like this, I always see these little circles in there, you know, these little round circles, this galling going on inside there, you know, and different things like that. And you start to notice patterns. Same thing. I show these all the time, guys, but realistically, one of the items that everybody complains about is a head pressure control valve. Oh, those things are junk. Just cut them out and throw a fan cycle switch on. Those things are just, you know, they're nothing but problems. You know, a lot, and I do this too, everybody, okay? I have been known to do this many times where when we don't understand something, oftentimes we tend to say that they suck. Oh, those are always bad. They're always a problem. When in reality, a head pressure control valve, especially an LAC valve like this one, this is an LAC valve, okay? This is the simplest design. It's so easy. There's really not much to fail inside this valve. And to be honest, majority of the times that I've seen an LAC valve fail, they usually fail where they're stuck bypassing, okay? That is not typically a fault of the head pressure control valve. If one of these is stuck where it's bypassing all the time, There's probably something stuck inside the valve, a little piece of metal from something. And you know what that's from? That's from improper refrigeration installation. That's from us not doing our job when we're installing these valves. We overheat them. We don't deburr the pipe before we put it together. You know, that's what causes a lot of these components to fail, right? So head pressure control valve, but I encourage everybody out there, cut them open, right? They're not always going to be as perfect as this one and as nice and neat, but I cut this myself. Now, I went through probably 3 or 4 of these valves before I got it perfect, okay? Same thing with this expansion valve right here. Now, this is a very simple, now if you're going to cut expansion valves, show it to Instagram right here. I highly suggest that you do a flare valve, okay? Notice that this one's a flare. They're actually a lot easier because if you try to cut the connections, like on this head pressure control valve, because this is a sweat-in valve, you try to cut the connections on this, it's a little difficult and it's kind of tricky, okay? Now, as far as cutting these things open, you got to be very careful. Make sure that you're using lots of protective equipment, different things like that. Your fingers, don't get them stuck in the saw blades. I use a bandsaw when I'm cutting these open, and I have a jig. It's a Portaband Pro that I put my big Milwaukee bandsaw in, and you use it like a chop saw kind of. And it has a table on it that you can just slowly feed these parts through when you're cutting them and different things like that. But just understand, don't be afraid to cut open bad parts. It helps us to understand what's going on. And I've learned a lot from cutting open bad parts. In the beginning part of my career, change compressors, whatever, just throw them in the trash, you know, change compressor, throw it in the trash. But I wasn't learning. I was just changing compressors, right? And then I wanted to start like digging, like, okay, what is it that caused this compressor to go bad? What do I think about A2L refrigerants? Upkept Mafia is asking on Instagram. And am I coming to Atlanta? Actually, I am planning on coming to AHR in Atlanta for sure. We'll definitely be live streaming from the Sporlin booth. They're setting up a whole live stream setup and everything. So we'll definitely be doing that. We'll have lots of friends and stuff. The A2L refrigerants, okay? Guys, don't be afraid of another flavor of refrigerant, okay? A2L's no big thing, all right? Now, I'm refrigeration side. Like, I don't do heavy industrial refrigeration. I do light commercial and air conditioning, okay? But I work with hydrocarbon refrigerants, completely flammable, R290 propane, right? It's 100% flammable. And the interesting thing about propane, R290 refrigerant grade propane, is it doesn't have a smell. It doesn't smell like anything, so you don't even know if it's leaking, okay? It's really not that big of a deal. When it comes to A2L refrigerants, don't buy into all the hype. I get people, I was watching a Facebook post the other day and someone's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with these butane-based refrigerants? We're going to all die. Mark my words, a compressor's going to blow up. And this is what this person's saying. Guys, chill out. It's not that big of a deal. When you're working with refrigerants, I don't care if it's an A2L or just a regular refrigerant or a hydrocarbon refrigerant, just follow basic refrigeration practices, right? Cut as many components out as possible. That goes for any refrigerant, right? Now, it's not always practical to cut components out, but cut any component out that you can, no matter what refrigerant you're working on, whenever possible, okay? Always purge with nitrogen when brazing, okay? When you're working with A2Ls, especially with R290 and hydrocarbons, you want to sweep the system with nitrogen before you start making repairs, okay? I have videos on my channel. I don't know the name of them and stuff, but it's R290 videos where I swept the system while I was working on an R291. I swept it with nitrogen, opened up all the solenoid valves, purged nitrogen through the entire system, saw it come out the other side, right? And then went ahead and took the compressor out, right? I ended up having to unsweat the compressor because sometimes when you're working on tiny little reach-in coolers, it's just not practical to cut things out. So just got to be careful, and I unsweat the compressor. Okay, I have the system completely open. I already swept with nitrogen, and there's no compressor in it anymore. And I take my torch, and I run it across the suction line, and just like a lighter, there's a flame coming out of it, even after I swept it with nitrogen. So always be on your toes. Just make sure that you're doing your best and being safe, okay? But it's really not that big of a deal. It's not like there was a flamethrower shooting out, okay? Just don't buy into the hype of everybody being afraid. A2Ls are no big thing, okay? My gosh, man, there's some training stuff out there where people are like, oh my gosh, you got to do this, follow all these steps. Like, really, the steps that they're telling you to follow are basic refrigeration practices. Again, cut as many components out as possible. Sweep the system with nitrogen. Just be careful, okay? That's all you got to do. With any refrigerant, you have the potential of a fire, okay? It doesn't matter if it's a hydrocarbon, an A2L, or whatever, because at a certain temperature, the oil can ignite. So you need to be careful either way. Anybody out there ever been unsweating an expansion valve in a remote refrigeration system, right? Because sometimes, again, it's not always practical to cut them out of small systems. So you're unsweating an expansion valve, and when you pull the line across, whoosh, there's a big old flame coming out of it, right? Because the oil ignited. It's not necessarily the refrigerant, it's the oil, okay? If you have trapped oil in a system and you're heating it up trying to unsweat something, there could be a flame out. So you got to learn to be prepared for that stuff. Again, like I tell people that I'm working with, always prepare for the worst. Because if you prepare for the worst, you're not going to be disappointed, right? You're ready for it, right? And then nothing happens, cool, it went good, but just be ready for the worst, right? And, you know, another little anecdote or whatever you want to call it, whenever I'm brazing something together, I tell this with other people that I'm working with quite often. Whenever I'm looking at a job, I think, okay, what's going to be the hardest part of this job? Okay, let's say I'm changing a compressor. Let's say I'm installing a head pressure control valve. What's going to be the hardest part of brazing in this head pressure control valve, right? Who knows, right? Maybe it's one particular braze joint that's just really difficult to get to. I attack that first. Do the hard part first. Get it done. So then it's easy after that. Got the hard part done. Don't stress about everything. Of course, I'm not trying to downplay safety because, yes, we need to be safe. We need to be careful. But don't buy into the hype about A2Ls and hydrocarbons. They're not that big of a deal as long as we follow proper refrigeration practices and we're careful, really. Let's see what we got going on in the chat right now. I'm reading through here. Let's see. Have I accidentally flooded a compressor out in the beginning of my career? No, I can't really say that I flooded one out. You know, that's another thing, too, that was way overhyped. When I came into my career, when I was first going to trade school, everybody said, oh, man, you need to be so careful when you're charging compressors. I mean, just, you know, meter that in very, very slowly so you don't ruin the compressor with liquid refrigerant going back to it. Man, that was so overhyped, right? I'm not saying you could just go to town and flood that thing with liquid refrigerant, but everybody panicked about that. And as I went further and further in my career, I realized, like, hey, you know what? I found myself being scared about charging, and it's not that big of a deal. You just got to use common sense and meter it in. I personally don't understand very many of the gimmicks, right? There's a lot of tools out there that to me seem like gimmicks, right? Like there's a special tool that you can put on your charging port so that way it vaporizes the refrigerant for you. That's what your gauge handle's for. Like you have a valve that you open and close. There's no need to buy extra tools that help you to charge so that way you don't flood the compressor with liquid. Like people are overhyping that so much, and it's not that big of a deal. Chevy 2564, thanks so much for being a channel supporter for so long. This is awesome, okay? All right, let's see. Is the copper wire material in a grounded compressor still good and you melt the grounded copper wire? Is the copper wire material in a grounded compressor still good? I mean, it just depends. You know, it depends on how damaged it is. Now, you're not going to reuse that section of the compressor, but you can certainly take the copper in for scrap. They're probably going to give you like the dirtiest copper they can give you because it's going to have wax on it and different things like that. But yeah, you can, I mean, it's still going to be, and it's not really copper. I guess it's a copper mixture on the wire, you know, but it's not normal copper. So, all right, let's see what we got going on in the chat. I'm scrolling through here. I'm trying to pay attention to Instagram and everything. So let's see what we got going on in here. All right, cool. Nothing going on in there so far. Let's see. I got a bunch of questions too, like two people, I shouldn't say a bunch, but two people had asked me just a little bit about myself. Where am I from? I'm from Southern California. I wasn't born here. I was actually, ironically, a lot of people probably wouldn't think this, but I was actually born in Missouri, like in the middle of nowhere in a town called Rolla, Missouri. But I moved to California when I was 3. I've lived here for pretty much all my life, gone to school at different parts, but I live in Southern California. I work in the Inland Empire, and the Orange County region is the areas that I service. So, all right. Have I ever reversed a compressor to get it to pump dirt in the valves? Mario, no. I have been told many times in my career that you always try to reverse a stuck 3-phase compressor. Out of all the times that I have tried it, I've never gotten it to work. Never. So, no. Anytime that I'm like, I'm just going to try this, you know, reverse the phases, kick the crap out of the compressor. It's never started up. It's never worked. So for me, at least, I'm sure plenty of people are going to say that it's worked for them, but it hasn't worked for me. So have I ran into a lot of problems with QRC evaporators? No, Brett, I have not run into a lot of problems with QRC evaporators. If I had to guess, I probably have 20 to 25 QRCs out there, and I probably have 15 to 20 intelligent evaporators out there, maybe more. I'm just guessing off the top of my head. Really not a lot of problems. The first real problem that I had with the QRC evaporator, it uses an EEV and it has a pressure transducer on it. And on the older QRC systems, they actually had, when you were pressure testing with nitrogen, there was a big fat label that I looked right at, but I didn't read. And it says, do not pressurize past like 150 PSI or something like that. And I ruined the pressure transducer because I took it up way too high. That was one of the first problems. I have on the QRCs and the Intelligens, sensor failures, really. And then evaporator motor failures. But I mean, those are just basic normal issues. And I've had a few of the stators on the EEVs go bad, but I've never had an EEV itself. But majority of the time, at least in my area, when you try to get a new stator, they don't stock them at my local supply houses, so you have to buy the whole valve. So I've changed the valves just because it's like, well, I'm going to sell the customer the whole valve, might as well just change it. But I've also just taken the stator off of it and just changed that. So it just depends on every situation. But no, not really had too many problems with it. Can I make a troubleshooting checklist for you to follow to learn from? I mean, you know, it's something that I might do potentially. Yeah, Mac Daddy's your name. It's something that I might try to do. It's just, you know, I have all these great ideas and then I forget. I'm sure there's some undiagnosed mental issues, but like I get these ideas and then I forget about them. And then I'm like a puppy. I get distracted and start doing something different and all over the place. So let's talk about the upcoming project that I have going on right now. So, you know, part of the reason why I'm hyping this project so much is because of my issues, how I get distracted and then I forget about things and I stop focusing on them. I'm hyping them up so you all hold me accountable, right? I'm going to be replacing the HVAC system in my own home. Now, remember, I'm a light commercial refrigeration and air conditioning technician. I don't do residential. Nor do I get into building science. And we're going to building science the, you know what, out of this AC at my house, okay? So I'm going to do my best with what's practical. And we're going to, we're already in talks with a bunch of people. We got blower doors coming. We're going to go crazy with this, okay? So I plan on replacing the duct system. We're doing a load calculation. And I can already tell everybody out there that when you see the initial video, I have not made any video footage yet really, but when you see the initial video, when I do the tour of showing my own home HVAC system, it's a mess. It's a disaster, okay? It's an oversized system. It is, excuse me, I got the Coke nose going on right now, but it's an oversized system. It's extremely loud. My entire family, the way that we sleep is via the noise that the static air pressure drop causes across my system, right? Because there's a huge pressure drop because I have a crappy stamped filter grill for the return and it makes a bunch of turbulent noise. Again, my house should not have a 4-ton system. We did a preliminary load calculation and I think we came up with right around 2.5 tons is what my house should have, but I think it's going to be closer to 3 by the time we're done because we're going to be adding fresh air and different things like that. So we're going to be playing with it. But this is going to be fun. We're going to make a video series out of it. I have not selected any equipment, haven't really done anything. The only things I have done on my home system is I changed my thermostat to an Ecobee so that we have better historical run time so that way we can see some things because I want to see run times and different stuff like that just to try to evaluate what the actual running load is on my house, right? So we're doing a load calculation, but then we're going to monitor it too. We're going to do a blower door so that way we can see what the actual leakage of the house is. I also installed a home energy monitor on my breaker panel that's monitoring every circuit in my breaker panel so that way I can see real-time energy consumption. Again, I just like data. So this is just going to give me data so that way I can see like, hey, this is how much better. Now, in a perfect world, I wish I would have installed the SensiStat and the energy monitor a year ago. So that way, when I go to install the new one, I have all that old data to look at. Unfortunately, I'm only going to have a few months worth of data to look at, but I did get the energy monitor and the Sensi installed last week. So now I'm going to have the entire month of August, which That's a good thing because we are going to be at design conditions, if not a little bit further past design conditions. I believe the design conditions for my home is 97 degrees. So we're going to probably be pushing 100, 105 throughout the month of August. So it'll kind of give us some good information and some good energy usage data. That way we can evaluate later. So, but we're going to have fun. You know, I'm reaching out to a bunch of people. I want to do indoor air monitoring. I want to do all kinds of fun stuff with this, you know, but I also want to be practical. I don't want it to be too crazy. So we're just kind of looking at, let me see what we got going on here. Okay, cool. But yeah, I want to have fun with this. I want it to be practical. I don't want it to, and the other thing too, that I want people to understand with this project that we're going to do, I'm still going to do my normal videos. I'm still going to be making them. This is just going to be a bonus series, right? And the stuff that I'm going to be installing in my house, I can absolutely promise you, I'm not installing stuff just because I'm getting it for free. I don't even have anybody that is 100% committed to helping me with this project yet, okay? I will get sponsors of some sort for this project, but I can absolutely guarantee you that I'm not going to walk out cash positive out of this. This is going to be a very expensive project for me, and it's not going to all be free. And I can promise all of you guys that I'm not going to install something simply because I got it for free. Like, that is not going to happen. I'm not going to change the type of person that I am. And honestly, if manufacturers do want to work with me on this project, they're probably going to be pretty picky. And I know that I'm going to have a lot that are going to back off, because part of the deal is going to be like, look, I'm going to get to say whatever the heck I want to say about it. So you send it to me if you're proud of it. If you don't want to send it to me, then, you know, whatever, I'll just buy it. So we haven't made any decisions, but just stay tuned, right? I'm going to be posting on social media. If you guys have ideas or comments or anything, feel free to send me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com, and it'll help me to, you know, kind of start thinking about how I should be doing this, right? So feel free to send me an email, okay? So let's get into the chat. See what I got going on. What am I missing? You actually want to see some work being done when I do the house? Yeah, possibly, but I'm not going to also, it's not my style to put a camera on and just show me working for 2 hours. Like, that's just not my style of video. But yeah, there'll be some work, you know, stuff, and we'll be talking about it and why we're doing certain things. And I'll be evaluating, you know, whether or not it's a good idea for, like, I'm considering, like, hey, do I want to do spray foam and encapsulate my attic? That's a possibility, but I have to look at the cost, right? And then, okay, you know, like many people have told me, I'm never going to get my return on investment on something like that. But, you know, what's my comfort worth? My buddy Michael Hausch asked that when we were talking about on the Overtime show. He's like, stop looking at cost comparison and just think of comfort level. Like, what's your comfort worth and different things like that. So we're going to evaluate everything, and we're going to decide. And like I said, everybody, my house is a dumpster fire when it comes to air leakage and different things like that, you know. So I'll get that all on the footage, you know, the first intro video that I do. So we'll definitely be getting it. Am I going to zone my system? In all reality, I don't think it's really practical to zone my system. It's not something that I'm saying 100% no to, but I don't have that big of a house. It's a 4-bedroom house that's 1,800 square feet. I don't see the need for zoning. There's one thing about my house is my office, right? My computer alone puts out 2,000 BTUs of heat. So that's a pretty big load for my small, you know, 11 foot by 11 foot office. When my computer is running and when I'm editing videos, that thing's putting out some serious heat. So that's the one variable that I have with the system that I have to decide what I want to do with, is I do have a pretty big load for my office. But, you know, who knows? We'll see. We're still kind of working some things out. So let me see. I have some ideas too that I don't want to reveal yet, but there's some things we might be doing. So it's interesting because Laska made a joke about Dateline, NBC, you know, those shows, right? He's talking about another YouTuber, but those shows where, you know, To Catch a Predator or To Catch these different things, right? That's the child molester one. But I mean, you know what I mean? Like the ones where the news channels do these things where they try to catch shady contractors and different things like that. I have some ideas along those lines. So just stay tuned. I don't know if I can make them work or not for legal reasons, but if I can, I think it'll make for some great video footage. So we'll see. Let me see what else we got going on in the chat. Let's see. I'm reading through the comments right now, seeing if I'm missing anything. Nothing too yet. All right, cool. So, when I'm filming my videos, I get a lot of comments like, especially my two videos ago, the walk-in freezer that was totally iced up, and I vented some frustrations in the video. And I can't tell you how many comments I got. People saying, why are you venting? You're making money. Why are you upset? Why are you frustrated? Because the customer's paying you overtime rates. You should be happy to have the work. And while I am happy, actually, if those people that commented that stuff actually finished the video, they would have heard my closing words where I talked about all that stuff. But I find it necessary for people to understand something. First off, when I was talking in that video, I mentioned that I get frustrated. Yes, the customer makes some dumb decisions and I have to go fix it when I could be at home doing something else. And that is frustrating. But yes, I am getting paid for it. I don't vent those frustrations to the customer necessarily. I may tell them, hey, this could have been prevented. This is going to cost a bunch of money. You guys could have prevented that. Yes, I'm trying to educate them, but I'm not going in there berating the customer saying, you're dumb because you did this wrong and you're wasting my time. Like, I don't go in there and do that because, look, just like I said in the video, those customers have an option. Call me or call someone else. It is simple as that. They can call someone else. So while I do get a little bit frustrated and while I do talk to them and try to educate them, right? Bottom line, it's my job to do the work. But that doesn't mean that I am not human and I do not still have frustration and get a little butthurt, right? It happens. And I think that it's really important. One of the things that I try to show as much as possible on my channel is the fact that I am a real technician and I am a real person, right? Yes, I run a business. Yes, I have employees, but I'm out there working, right? I am busting my butt and I do get frustrated. And I think that it's important that I show to my viewers that I get frustrated, but finish the videos and you'll hear my closing words and you'll get to hear me talking about, hey, this didn't work out, or hey, this did, or I explain a lot of the questions that I think are going to come up. When I'm making a video, when I'm editing it, as I'm watching the edited footage, I think, oh yeah, I did that wrong. And I have the ability and it's very easy for me to edit something out and not show a mistake. It's really easy. It's super easy. All I got to do is click, and I can edit it in a way that nobody would have even known that I made that mistake. But I find it important to show those mistakes because, again, we all make mistakes. I try to make myself as relatable as possible to show people that, hey, I'm not just some perfect person who's out there posting all the good stuff. I'm going to post the stuff that I screw up too. And I'm going to show frustrations because I'm real, right? All right, so let's see what we got going on in the chat. How did I decide between topping off the charge versus finding and fixing the leak? Frank, so basically, if the leak is not giant and it's a critical piece of equipment, if it's not super early in the morning, I'm probably going to top off the charge and then go ahead and schedule to come back when I have time to properly fix it. But it really depends on the severity of the leak, okay? If it's a walk-in freezer or walk-in cooler, we have to get that system up and running. We have to get the food in the box cooled down back to the safe temperatures, because if food gets above the 41-degree federal limit for refrigerated food storage for a refrigerator for very long, you do have a window there, a buffer period, but if it gets above that temperature for very long, you have the ability for bacteria to start multiplying and growing, and then you have issues with people getting sick. And that's the thing that we're trying to preserve the food so that way people don't get sick, right? This entire earth is out to kill us, okay? That's plain and simple. We exist on this planet. We're living on borrowed time, and this entire earth is trying to kill us the entire time we're living here. Bacteria, different organisms, different things like that. We have antibodies. We have, refrigeration. We have ways of preserving food that prevent us from getting sick. But, we try to keep that food down to temperature as much as possible. So in a situation where it's not just pissing all the gas out, I'm probably going to top off the charge and get it up and running so that way we can get the food down to temperature, so that way we can, then potentially return on another visit and properly fix the leak. Okay, Gil, thank you very much for that super chat, man. I really appreciate that. That's Gil from HVAC Uncensored. This is my buddy right there. So I don't get to see Gil very often, but we do run into each other typically at AHR. We hang out for a while, usually the last couple times, and it's nice to catch up with him. So, it's kind of cool on the social media side is that we've kind of all got a nice, good group of friends. And while we may not constantly watch each other's content, constantly talk to each other, we all do respect each other. We all do hang out when we get the opportunity. We all lead busy lives and have our own stuff going on. But it is nice to be able to have this little core group of friends or people that we all tend to know. So it's really neat. It's one of the plus sides of doing social media. There's some bad sides to doing social media too, but it's fun. So let's see what else we got going on in here. You're venting because the boiler is allowed to, so therefore you are. There you go. Let me see what else we got going on in the chat. What am I missing? What if someone needed to find, I don't know what that is. Okay. Let's see. I'm seriously considering getting into this trade because of me. Well, Alex, that's really awesome. I hope you do get in the trade. This is a great trade. There's lots of money to be made. And one of the cool things about HVACR especially, right, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration, is that you have to know plumbing principles. You have to know electrical principles. You have to know science, right? Oh my gosh. When I was in high school, science, that was just, I'm never going to use science. I'm never going to use math. I remember thinking that when I was in high school. I don't know why I need to be in this algebra class. I'll never use algebra. Good grief. I do some crazy calculations in my head on a daily basis. And hey, guess what? Science? Yeah, we science the heck out of this stuff all the time. You're dealing with thermodynamics, you're dealing with electrical principles, you're dealing with all kinds of different stuff. And that's all has fundamentals in science, right? Science is science, There's a, anyways, I'm starting to go off on a tangent that I'm stopping myself from going on. But, there's so many different things to do in this trade, and it's a gateway too, and can lead you to all different sides. You don't just have to work on an air conditioner being an HVAC technician. You can be a balance technician, you could be a maintenance technician, you could be a controls technician, you can be a chiller, a refrigeration, a heating. I mean, there's so many different aspects of this trade. So it's a great trade. Anybody that's considering it, I highly encourage you to look into it. Get involved in a trade organization, get involved in your local trade school, community college, local high school program, whatever it is. Get your hands on something and learn a trade, because that is going to provide for you for the rest of your life, as long as you're not a punk person who doesn't want to try. But if you don't mind getting your hands dirty, if you don't mind a little bit of real work, this will keep you and your family fed for a very long time. So Hamilton, thanks so much for that super chat, man. I really appreciate it. Okay. Let's see what else we got going on in here. Have I worked on the bone medium profile coils? No, I don't really do any work on the medium profile. Those are typically for more of an industrial setting and like warehouse kind of stuff. I work on the low profile stuff most of the time. So let's see what else. You can be a controls guy and get blamed for everything going wrong. That is right, Will. That is right, and the controls guys, good gosh, those guys are dumb. No, I'm just kidding. Will does controls and air conditioning and stuff, so I'm just picking on him. Let's see what else. Cue up the Bill Nye the Science Guy theme. I was actually thinking the Bill Nye the Science Guy theme when I was saying that kind of stuff. I was always kind of curious what I can actually use on YouTube, because I have all kinds of puns and different phrases that I use all the time when I'm working, and then I go back and forth between them. But yeah, I always want to use I have little TV show references or pop culture references. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm allowed to show. I don't know what's fair use or whatnot in the videos. So, let's see what we going on in here. Will new refrigerants ever stop? What are they EPA trying to get to? No, Dale, the new refrigerants are never going to stop. Listen, it's the hippies, okay? The hippies, basically, if they had their way, we would not be using any refrigeration. We would not be producing any electricity. We would not be doing anything. We would not be even taking medications if the hippies had their way, because, they just don't see it, and they just want the earth to be the only thing. And while I agree, we don't need to get political and all that stuff, but, I agree that we need to be careful. No, the refrigerant changes will never stop. There's always a new one. Every time they come out with a new refrigerant, that refrigerant's already on a list to be replaced, and they're already trying to find another refrigerant to replace it, okay? So that's why I started referring to refrigerants as flavors. Just there's a new flavor of refrigerant coming out. Don't sweat it. Don't worry about pressures. That's one of the best pieces of advice I can give HVACR service techs and out there is stop focusing on pressures. The only time you really need to think about pressures is when you're setting a pressure safety control, a high pressure or a low pressure. That's really the only time you need to worry about what a pressure is measured in PSIG, okay? For the most part, start looking at saturation temperatures. Understand on a walk-in cooler how it should be designed. Was it designed with a 6-degree evaporator TD? Was it designed with a 10-degree evaporator TD? If you know that, you can predict what the refrigerant saturation temperature would be, right? And then all you need to remember is a temperature, and you could change it from any flavor of refrigerant as long as it's compatible with the oil in the compressor. It doesn't matter what pressure it's at because you're just looking at the saturation temperature. So I highly suggest you start getting familiar with saturation temperatures and stop focusing on pressures. Dimitri, thank you very much for that super chat. That is very awesome. I really appreciate it. You know, everybody that gives the support to this channel, it's very humbling. And I thank everybody out there. It's really cool to think that someone's giving their hard-earned money to some dude that's just rambling on the internet. So thank you very much. It's awesome. Okay. I really do appreciate it. Pressures are also useful when you need to convert on a PT chart. Yeah. But that you're looking at saturation temperatures when you convert, right? But yes, I know what you mean, dude. That's funny. Everyone has, oh, that's funny. You guys, see, there's a great chat stream going on in the chat right now. So what is the best resource to learn more about commercial kitchen hood vent systems? Alex, well, your best bet is to read manufacturers' individual literature. And when you do call a manufacturer, take that time to go ahead and quiz them on how their system works. So the major manufacturers in kitchen hoods, the two big players are Captive Air and Greenheck. Those are the two biggest players. There's other ones too, but in the kitchen space, Captive Air and Greenheck are the two big players, and they both have great resources, right? Greenheck also has another brand. What is Greenheck's other brand called? I can't think of it right now. Accurex, Greenheck, same stuff. But Captive Air also has another brand, Econoline or something like that too. That's just their knockoff brand or whatever. But just read on their information, go to their website, start Googling stuff, look up YouTube videos from the manufacturers, and just start kind of figuring things out. Understand basic principles of kitchen exhaust fans. Look, you need to get unwanted air out of that building. Why? Because maybe it's hot, maybe it smells, maybe it's toxic. Who knows? You need to get that air out of the building, so you gotta reject the air, right? So you use a fan to pull the air, but then you have to replace that air with makeup air, right? Because if you just take a paper bag, I talked about this last time, if you take a paper bag and you suck all the air out of it, the bag collapses. But if you cut a hole in the bottom of the bag, the air just passes through, right? So you got to put makeup air into the building, and then they just have control strategies for the makeup air and for the exhaust systems. And then once you figure out the concept of the kitchen exhaust and how it pulls the air out, extracts it out, whatever you want to say, and then you have the makeup air making up for what you're pulling out, then you got to say, okay, we need some fire safety devices in here. We need a fire suppression system. So they add a fire suppression system, and then they got to interlink that into your system. So that way, if the fire suppression system goes off, you typically don't want the building's makeup air units putting air into the building. So when the fire suppression system goes off, it shuts off the makeup air, and it'll typically force on the exhaust fans whether or not the exhaust fans were even running, because maybe there was a fire in the kitchen after they left. And then the fire suppression system automatically goes off, and then it forces all the exhaust fans on. The theory is that it's going to suffocate the fire, so that way the fire department can get there and extinguish it, okay? So you've got a hood system in there. You have fire suppression systems. You have controls that tie all that stuff together, and then you're going to have you're going to throw in other controls like, hey, guess what? When the hood system gets turned on, we want all the ACs to go into occupied mode and all the outside air dampers to open up on the ACs in some situations, and the indoor blower motor's turning on because they use the ACs for building balance too. And then maybe, you know, there's all kinds of different stuff that they might do. They might interlink, let's say you have a duct detector system, right, on the ACs to prevent a fire from happening in the AC. Well, you can interlink that into the hoods too. Like, there's so many different things. So the important thing is don't try to get everything. Just try to understand one concept at a time. An exhaust fan pulls air out of the building, okay? But there's more to an exhaust fan. It's not just simply you throw in the exhaust fan and it's good. The exhaust fan has to be sized right, and it has to be the right type of exhaust fan in case you're working in a kitchen that's greasy. There's special blades or wheels that are on a exhaust fan that are meant for grease, so that way they can be cleaned. And then you have to have the grease cleaned and extracted from that exhaust fan on a regular basis, because you don't want to leak it on the roof, because that could be a fire hazard. So again, focus on the basics. How does an exhaust fan work? Electricity, and it's just moving air, right? And then start layering stuff on. But reach out to each one of the manufacturers, Google their information, go to their websites, just start reading, start looking and start asking questions. That's really important. All right, let's see what else we got going on in here. What's one of my biggest nightmare jobs I've ever had? Brett, I've talked about this many years ago. Well, this happened many years ago, but we were approached. We usually don't do work for outside companies, but we were approached by a general contractor, and he quoted a job. He was from out of state, and he realized that he didn't have the licenses to complete the work. I don't know what he was thinking, but whatever. He didn't have the licenses. So he called us, and he did like kitchen stuff. I think he sold kitchen appliances, but he did his own work too in his own state, but he couldn't do it here. So he called us, and for whatever reason, we took this job. It was at a local casino, an Indian casino, and they were doing a huge renovation project at the casino. So there was multiple trades there. They were doing all kinds of different stuff. They were adding new restaurants and different stuff. Honestly, this was probably like 7 or 8 years ago. And that hotel, that casino has done these renovations probably 5 times since. Like, they're constantly renovating that place. But anyways, so the guy asked me to come in there. I went in there and I looked at the job. He goes, you just need to install a couple condensed units and that'll be it. So I go and I talk to the super that's running the entire job, and he walks me around the place. First off, too, the security, the training classes, all the different stuff I had to go through to even get on the property was insane, right? Safety vests, hard hats, all these, it is just silly, right? Anyways, so we get through all that. They tell me, all you got to do is just install this equipment. But I'm not the type of person, right? I'm a big picture person. So I'm not there to just do what people say. I'm like looking at it going, is this equipment going to work? Is this sized right? And so I start looking at it. It's water cooled equipment. They're like, yeah, we just want you to put it up here. And I'm like, this is where they want me to put the condensing unit. Where's the evaporators? Oh, it's like 300 feet that way and up a floor. And I'm like, you're not putting a 0.5 horsepower condensing unit 300 feet away from the equipment without doing some serious engineering calculations. And I was like, have you talked to the manufacturer? Did they sign off on this? And they're like, no, I should be fine. And I'm like, no, I don't do should be fine. Okay. So I started leaning into it. I started reading about it, and I actually called the manufacturer myself, and I got a hold of the design engineer from the manufacturer. And I'm like, look, did they tell you that they were doing this? And did they tell you that the line set was going to be this long? Because he had, even on the engineered plans, he had line sizes and everything. And I'm like, did they tell you this? And the engineer said, no, they didn't tell me any of this. He goes, that line set size and everything is only good for 50 feet. And I go, yeah, I'm telling you, this is a disaster, right? So we go through that. The manufacturer ends up having to send out new equipment. They had to respec everything. They come up with line sizes, all this different stuff. I did a bunch of work for them. I go through all these hurdles. I'm now 3 days of my time into this job. I'm getting my employees prepped for the install. We're going through safety trainings and different things like that. It's a giant pain. I order all the equipment, the line sizes. I have it delivered to the property and everything. I schedule everything. I have scissor lifts show up at the job. We've got, like, this is a big giant process, right? We're talking to the Indian casino people that run the place, because they've got tables where we need to put scissor lifts. They've got to move the tables, right? Gambling tables and different things like that. And it's starting to get frustrating. I start running into these little problems, and they're starting to just poke me in my side. Little problem after little problem. Okay, so then we get to the point where it finally comes down to the day that I scheduled to do the work. And mind you, I got approvals from the super, I got approvals from the casino boss, I got approvals from everybody. They're going to have all this stuff done. We're going to come in with scissor lifts. We're going to get up there. We're going to run new lines, like all this stuff. And we get in there the night. I schedule all my crew to come with me. We're all there. It's in the middle. It's all night work. We're all there. And we show up, and they're like, no tables are moved. There's people playing where we need to go. And I'm like, hey, we need to set up scissor lifts. Why aren't the tables moved? They're like, they acted like I never even scheduled anything with them. They were like, what are you talking about? We can't stop these tables. This is money. We're not moving the tables. You got to work around these people. And I'm like, I'm not working around an open casino floor with scissor lifts. No, you need to move this, close this area down, figure something out. That's the only way we're getting this job done. And they were like, absolutely not. This will not happen. You're going to find another way to do it. And I said, okay. Cool. Now, mind you, I've already gone through a bunch of frustrating things. I left a lot of little things out that were just irking me the whole way, right? So I got all my crew. We walked over. Now, mind you, I've heard some horror stories of people working on Indian casino property, right? Because normal laws don't apply there. So in the middle of the night, I went there. I removed all my materials from that job without telling anybody. Didn't tell the super, didn't tell any, because I had stored all my materials on the job site. Removed all my materials. I have, 20-foot copper things hanging off my van, right? Because we got full sticks of copper. They're hanging, 6.5 feet off of each end of the truck, actually. And we bounced from that job. We left. We didn't tell anybody. We got all of our materials because I already knew, like, I was done. I was done with that job. I pulled out, told all my guys, go home. We're done with this. I took all the materials back to the supply house the next day. And the next afternoon, I got a call from the guy that hired me. And he's like, hey, what's going on? And I said, yeah, we're walking away from the job. We're done. And he's like, wait, what? And I go, yeah, we're done, dude. Like, this is not cool. This happened, this happened, this happened. He's like, but, wait, no, you got to do the work. He was begging. And I go, nope, it is, dude. I said, I tried and I tried and I tried and I walked away. So I lost a bunch of money on that job because I had a lot of my labor. I want to say it was like $2,000 or $3,000 in labor that I had, accumulated, paying my guys and myself, and that was supposed to be billed. And it wasn't worth the hassle. It wasn't worth any of the drama. I just walked away. I was glad I got all my materials off the job site, but I did that in a strategic way because I've heard of horror stories of removing materials and different things from job sites, and I just got it out of there and I was done. I just walked away. So that was one of the biggest construction nightmares that I ever had, and I was just so glad to walk away from that one. So all right, let's see what else we got going on here. Yeah, exactly, Will. Yeah, I'm not a construction person, and I don't deal with people's BS. So when people don't do what I need to do and what I scheduled to do, I'm just done. Figure it out. I'm out. I don't have time to deal with this. I'm busy enough doing service work. So that's one of the main reasons why I don't do a lot of service work. Rich is asking if I have a contact at Fieldpiece. A lot of my contacts at Fieldpiece have moved on. So your best bet would be just to give the tech support. Feel free to give me a call, Rich. I mean, I can probably guide you in the right direction or message me or whatever. You got my contact information. So let's see what else we got going on here. On a defrost timer, is the number 3 terminal always powered? Michael, it depends because every defrost clock is different. If it's an 814520 or a DTAV time clock, well, 8145, there has to be a jumper. On a DTAV Graslin defrost clock, there also has to be a jumper between 1 and 2. If you don't have a jumper between 1 and 2 on both of those clocks, then you're not going to have power anywhere. But that jumper is what creates power. So on an 8145, number 1 and N power the clock. And so oftentimes you'll put 208 or 120 to those two. But if you want all the other contacts to have power, so 2 goes to 3 and 4, but you have to jump from 1 to 2 in those situations. But if you're dealing with like an 80-45-20, those are different. So it all depends on the schematic. So, but most of the time you have to put a jumper on them to make it work. So let's see what else we got going on in here. Have I ever had walk-in fan blades very bent that it was excessively shaking the coil? Yeah, I got lots of videos showing that. Let's see what else we got going on in here. I'm reading through the chat, seeing what I'm missing. Nothing there. Let me look at Instagram. Not really missing anything there too. Okay, cool. Facebook. I'm looking at Facebook, seeing what's going on. Oh, right on, Daryl. Awesome, bud. Thanks so much for the support, man. Daryl says he's wearing my shirt right now. So, all right. So let's get to a couple things on my list that I have to talk about. Let me cross those ones off. I already answered that question. Someone had emailed me, and again, I'm totally open to answering questions from homeowners, business owners, technicians, all that stuff. All good. Send the questions. If I have the time, I'll try to answer them. So I have someone asking me how they can clean their window unit. Now, the person that asked me said they clean the outside condenser just fine, but it's difficult to get to the inside evaporator coil. And in all honesty, the inside evaporator coil on window units is usually full of mold and other bacterial growth. So you definitely want to clean those with the proper cleaners. I will say that once you've cleaned A window shaker unit, I don't know if I was saying mini split earlier, but we're talking about a window shaker. But once you've cleaned a window unit or a window shaker unit, right, that's just a unit that goes through a hole in the wall or through a window. You've got a condenser on the outside portion and evaporator on the inside portion, right? It's just a small air conditioner, typically no bigger than 2 tons, usually 1 ton or smaller. So you want to clean those on a regular basis. But once you pull one apart and you realize how difficult they are to come apart and how the styrofoam, because they're full of styrofoam in there, they use styrofoam for ducting and different things. When you start getting that bacterial growth and the mold on the styrofoam, it's almost impossible to clean it off. Window units in general, they're basically throwaway units. If you clean them, it's okay, but I mean, it's a process. So you typically got to pull the whole unit out, take it apart. They're kind of interesting how they put them together. They typically have one motor that has a double shaft on it, and the blades are designed in the way that when the condenser's running, it's spinning the evaporator too the other way. It's kind of cool how it works. But yeah, cleaning those things, I mean, you could pull them apart. Just be careful. Watch the styrofoam. Is what specific cleaners would I use? It depends on the severity. If you're just talking about lint and dirt and bacterial growth, then I would use the Refrigeration Technologies Viper HD cleaner first to break down majority of the stuff, and then I would use the Venom Pack evaporator cleaner, which is the green one, because that's going to, once you've cleaned it with the HD cleaner or the yellow condenser coil cleaner, right? But that yellow cleaner can actually be used for evaporators too, and it'll break down little bits of grease and stuff. So once you've cleaned it with that and you've rinsed it all off, then I'd put some of the green cleaner on there, the evaporator cleaner, the Venom Pack, because that has different enzymes and different things to break down bacteria and prevent them from coming back. So check out Refrigeration Technologies, the Viper Venom Packs. They'll help you out. If you can't find them where you're at, go to TrueTechTools.com. They have lots of the Viper products, the Refrigeration Technologies products. And if you do go to TrueTechTools.com, use my offer code BIGPICTURE. It's one word. You'll get an 8% discount on checkout on most products. And then I get a small commission from that. So it's a great way to help support the channel if you're interested in doing so. The same thing goes for tools and all that stuff. So let's see, reach in there. I get emails quite often from people that want to come work with me. They want to shadow me. They want to come donate their time and just work on weekends. And while those are all very humbling and I appreciate people that do want to work with me, number one, I'm probably not the person that you think I am. I think a lot of people have this perception that I'm this like unicorn service technician that's the nicest guy in the world. I'm not. I'm a normal dude. I'm a jerk, and just like everybody else, okay? I get frustrated. I don't know how to handle emotions. So first off, take me off the pedestal that you have me up on, because I'm not that person, okay? Second off, it is very humbling to have people say that they want to come work with me and stuff, but unfortunately, for insurance reasons, it just isn't going to be practical. And the next thing, people say they want to come work with me, they want to donate their time on the weekends, different things. I don't want to work on the weekends. I avoid working on the weekends as much as possible, so it's not really something I can schedule, but my insurance company wouldn't even allow me to have people come work for me because you wouldn't be insured. So, and there's just so much liability. It's especially in this litigious state of California that I live in. You don't want it. What the heck was that? That scared the crud out of me. I don't know what that was, but it scared me. All right. So Brandon asks me what advice I can give him to not overthink stuff. Okay. So he said, especially when he's working on low voltage shorts. Brandon, first and foremost, what I want to advise everybody out there, when you're going to a service call, don't overthink that service call on your drive there. What I advise people to do, okay, as you're going to, let's just say, a walk-in freezer down, okay? So you're driving out there and you're in your head, you're thinking, what could it be? Maybe it's the compressor, maybe it's the refrigerant charge, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Stop focusing on that stuff, because you get yourself into a pigeonhole, and then you think when you get there, you just hyper-focus on that thing you've been thinking about the whole time. The best advice I can give anybody out there, when you're going to a call where you're going to have to troubleshoot something, especially something that you're not like super familiar with, when you're driving, instead of trying to focus on what could be wrong, run through in your head the sequence of operation. Run through in your head how that equipment works as you're driving there. Just think in general terms. Okay, it's a walk-in freezer. I know this particular one has a condensing unit on the roof with a defrost clock that controls the power for the evaporators. Power comes down on number 4. It goes to the solenoid valve, opens that up, and think about the sequence of operation versus trying to guess what could be wrong. okay? Because that way, when you get there, you have an open mind and you're not just focused on the one thing you've been thinking, oh man, it's going to be the worst thing. It's going to be a compressor. It's going to be a compressor. And then so you get there and you're focusing on the compressor and you're ignoring the obvious thing that contactor's bad or something like that, okay? So instead of focusing and trying to figure out calls as you're driving to them, stop, take a step back, and just think about the sequence of operation. And then it'll start coming to you, okay? The next thing he says, especially when he's working on low voltage shorts. Low voltage shorts, especially when you're dealing with 24 volts, can be kind of tricky. One of the best pieces of advice that I can give anybody out there when you're working on low voltage shorts, power down the equipment, okay? First and foremost, when you're working on equipment, when you have fuses that blow, when you have breakers that are tripped, whether it be high voltage or low voltage, we don't just flip breakers back on. Before you flip a breaker, before you check a fuse, before you do any of that, grab your meter and start testing for continuity, start testing for direct shorts to ground, okay? When you're doing low voltage, that can be tricky, right? That can be tricky because oftentimes the common leg of the secondary side of the transformer is grounded. And so oftentimes you get on there and you're like, oh, I got a direct short. That's the problem. But then you notice that you always have a direct short. And that's because the common leg of the secondary side is typically grounded. So whenever you're working on low voltage shorts, again, with power down, don't leave them off. Go remove all the grounds. Remove the grounds, and then you can tone everything out. And you can start checking things and saying, okay, you know what? I'm getting a direct short to ground right here. I think this component's the problem. And you won't be getting false readings because your transformer's grounded. Now, something else to think about is oftentimes, like I can think of a Lennox package unit, okay? Lennox package units, they actually ground the low voltage side in multiple places inside the unit. So you have to know all those different places, okay? So I don't really have any more like bulletproof pieces of advice for you. It's just basically don't overthink it, step back. And if you're doing low voltage stuff, remove the ground, then you can check for shorts to ground. I always do that. I was just talking to a technician the other day because I think I was talking to him. Yeah, I was talking to a technician, and you know, we had a tripped circuit breaker. And when I'm resetting a circuit breaker, what I do is I turn the load off, right? So let's say I'm working on an exhaust fan and it has a tripped circuit breaker. The first thing I do is turn off the exhaust fan, go turn the breaker off all the way. Don't leave it in the trip position just because, okay? Turn it off all the way. Then I go up and I start checking for direct shorts to ground because I don't just reset things and see if it happens. Fuses, I'm sorry. Fuses do not go bad for no reason, okay? There's a very, very small percentage of maybe you got a defective fuse, but the odds of that happening are slim to none, okay? So stop thinking that fuses just go bad because they don't, okay? Just like compressors. Compressors don't go bad. They're murdered. Fuses, it's best in your head. I know there's some weird situations, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there that are going to say, you're wrong, fuses go bad all the time. Okay, sure, so be it. But trust me, just approach it as a fuse doesn't go bad. Start checking for shorts to ground, right? Get your meter out, put it on continuity, start toning everything out before you try resetting anything, okay? Once you've toned everything out, once you put your insulation tester on the compressors, on the motors, you're sure there's no direct shorts to ground, there's no leakage through the insulation, any of that stuff, then you can carefully turn the equipment on, being very careful not to put yourself in front of loads that might explode, VFDs, different things like that. Then start testing current on all the components and trying to figure out why that circuit breaker tripped, okay? Same thing goes for low voltage shorts. Don't just assume that you just flip a new fuse in there and call it a day. Find the problem, okay? Something is happening. And if it doesn't happen right away, it's an intermittent problem. So start thinking about it. If you have intermittent shorts on a carrier package unit, grab that low voltage wire, go into the economizer, and really start inspecting it because it typically runs over the indoor blower section. It runs past some metal areas. And if you have low voltage shorts on carrier units, a good majority of the time it's going to be in the economizer section, okay? If it's a Lennox package unit, again, you don't want to just go in there assuming this every single time, but there's areas that once you start diagnosing a lot of them, you'll start to recognize it, okay? Lennox package units, the limit switches for the heating section, those are one of the most common causes of low voltage shorts on Lennox package units, okay? I just noticed that because I fixed so many of them just over and over and over again, okay? So, but just don't overthink things, all right? All right, let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Let me see what I'm missing. See if I missed anything. How do you stop refrigerant from spraying so much on the liquid line? Jacob, you need to adjust the Schrader core depressor in your hoses or your probes, okay? A lot of people don't realize that if you have, let's say you're using the field piece job link probes, they have a Schrader core depressor in there that is adjustable, okay? You can actually turn it very carefully and pop it out a few turns. Same thing goes with your manifold gauge set with your normal hoses. You can adjust the Schrader core depressor. And those Schrader core depressors, they do go bad, okay? Now, if you're really having issues with refrigerant spraying, try changing your Schrader core depressors, try doing that. You can always use a Schrader depressor. That's a mechanical device that you put on the system and you mechanically turn it opened and closed. Then you'll eliminate that completely. But honestly, I kind of see those things as more of a gimmick. I just focus on my hoses and I just go to town, right? Just be careful. But yeah, just look at your hoses, look at the Schrader core depressors. A lot of times that's where your issues are. So when I am in my space, when I'm talking to my videos all the time, you guys are not the first person to notice that I have a lot of crutch words and issues, okay? Because I edit my own videos and I cut out as many as possible. But I got mental issues, okay? And one of the things is I have crutch words like crazy. One of them is and I think a lot of people have these. One of my most popular crutch words right now is okay. I can't tell you how many okays I cut out of. Every time I turn on my camera, there's something in my head, even though I know not to do it. I start the clip with, okay, here we are, okay. And it's like, why am I doing that? It's so confusing to me why I do that, but it's just a crutch word. It's how my brain works. It is what it is. So apologies, but it is what it is. If you hear a lot of okays, trust me, I probably cut out 3 times as many because I say it all the time. So I cut out as many of those as possible where it doesn't ruin the entire sentence when I'm talking. So it is what it is. I apologize, but whatever. If you don't like it, move on. All right. See what else we got going on in here. What are compress? I'm reading through the chat right now. Let me see what I'm missing here. What are gauges I would recommend for a younger tech that can spend about $800? Timothy, honestly, I really depends on where you want to go, but I really like the field piece products. I like the field piece digital gauges, the S-Man series. They have the 380 and the 480, and then they also have their JobLink Smart probes. I like both of those. You know, a lot of, especially younger people in the trade, they really like going with the probes more so than the gauges. I'm still kind of old school, so I'm a mix between, if I'm repairing, I typically use gauges. If I'm evacuating, I typically use dedicated vacuum hoses. And if I'm diagnosing, I typically use probes. That's just how I do it. Sometimes I'll charge with my probes, but majority of the time I'm charging with my manifold gauge set just because I'm old school. Do I believe that you should start on analog? Not really anymore, okay? There was a time in the past when I thought everybody needed to learn on analog, but to be honest with you, the value and the information that you get from digital is so important and so much more accurate. There's certain times that analog is still a little bit better, especially when you're calibrating and setting pressure controls, because the resolution or whatever refresh rate on the digital gauges is not fast enough to catch how fast a needle can move down when a system turns off. So if you're adjusting, I still keep a pair of stubby gauges in my van where it's just a single, they call them lollipop gauges, just like a high side red one and a low side blue one, and they have little ports on them. I keep those in my van for doing pressure controls and some stuff, but for the most part, I'm going to encourage everybody to go digital, not because digital is going to do your work for you, because they're not. Digital just consolidates data and helps us as technicians to have that consolidated data so that way we can make better educated decisions, okay? So I'm going to encourage anybody out there to check out the field piece products. Hey, Testo makes products too, and a lot of people swear by the Testo stuff. So if that's your realm, if people that, wherever you work, Testo is very popular, then go with Testo. But digital in general, I think, is much better because of all the data it can give you, okay? Understand something. I think most of you guys get it, but I think there's a few viewers, especially new viewers, that have never watched my content before that don't get my sarcasm and my humor. If you don't like it, again, bye, Felicia, right? Move on. But for real, I joke around about stuff and I say things, and I know, okay? I know that oftentimes. So instance, in the video where I was working on the restroom exhaust fan, everybody's like, that's not poop dust, that's paper towel. Okay, I know that. I know I'm being silly. I'm being sarcastic, right? Because it's a restroom exhaust. Now, while there still probably is some bacteria and all the dirt and the nastiness in that, I realize it's not just poop dust, okay? I'm smarter than that, but still, it's nasty. I don't want to get my hands on it, right? And I said it just to be funny because I like to have fun when I work. So, Albert had mentioned how, it seems kind of silly that I'm talking about safety all the time, but yet I walk around wearing a giant watch on my wrist in my videos all the time, and I wear a ring, which is, oh my gosh, so dangerous to wear a ring. It is. If you wear a metal ring, very dangerous, okay? This is a rubber silicone, or actually it's a silicone coilo ring. Oh no, I'm not gonna get electrocuted. It's just a silicone ring. I highly encourage these things. Actually, check this out. I'm gonna give you marriage advice, okay? If y'all are getting married soon, go with silicone rings. Save yourself $2 grand. Buy a $15 ring. The sentiment is still there. As long as your spouse is okay with that. If I had it to do all over again, I would buy a silicone ring instead of the $800 ring that I bought for myself because, I wanted to have a fancy ring like my wife too. Now, of course, my wife wants to have a fancy ring. That's fine, okay? But even still, my wife will wear her fancy ring when she goes out, but she actually has a coilo ring too. She wears it to the gym, all that different stuff, because there's less chance of getting hurt. There's less chance of damaging it. And it's like, it's probably more than 20 bucks, but whatever, buy a silicone ring. As far as the watch, of course, I know I'm not perfect. All right. My watch is plastic. Yes, it's a Samsung watch on the inside, but it has a giant oversized heavy duty plastic case on it. It's fine. And whenever I do work in situations, I'll take my watch off. Okay. So understand something. When I make these videos, I'm not making them going in there saying I'm going to train the world. These videos actually aren't meant for the public's use. These videos are for my employees. I still, to this day, now granted, I know that I get a lot of views and I know that a lot of you guys watch my videos, but they're not meant to be watched and educational, okay? I know there's all kinds of places that I can show. People are like, you need to show more lockout, tag out in your videos. No, I don't, because these are not safety videos, right? I talk about certain things to kind of better yourself, and I insert a little bit of education in my videos, but majority of the time, my videos are made, let me see what, okay, my videos are simply made to just show how my brain works, right? This is how I troubleshoot. Choose to use the ways that I troubleshoot or choose to say I'm an idiot, so be it. I'm not going in here with a script saying, well, I need to talk about this and I need to talk about this and this and this and this. Do I use lockout, tagout? Yes. Do I always use it? No. Yes, of course I should use it all the time, but that's not something that's not my channel. I'm not here to show all that stuff, right? I'm not here to be the perfect educator in the world. I'm just a normal service technician sharing how my brain works, how weird it is, okay? And I make these more so for my employees, and I know that there's other benefits to other people, but again, I can't stress enough, these are not like a perfect how-to to the job. That's not what they're meant to be. They're more or less how my brain works. That's what they are. It's just a documentation of how my brain works and how I go about troubleshooting things. So I apologize if I upset anybody out there. Again, it's okay. I'm not offended if you choose to move on. It's all good, okay? This is a funny question that I get all the time, and I swear that this happens so much. Why in the heck are my batteries always low in my meter? Like, why are they always low? And I was thinking about that today, and I was like, why is it that my batteries are always low? It's because I use my meter all the time. And it's one of those things that you forget to do, right? If my meter had a big light that said battery low, then I'd probably remember to change it more, but it's a tiny little thing in the top and I forget to look at it. So yeah, it's just one of those things, kind of silly, but all right, let's see what else we got going on in the chat. You've been wearing silicone ring for the last 10 years. Hardly ever wear my metal band. Jason Johnson says, honestly, I can't even get my metal band on my fat finger anymore. I'm afraid if I get it on there, it won't come off because I have weird fingers where my knuckles are fat and then it gets skinny after. So I had this little chingus put on my metal band that holds my ring from like slipping off my finger. And once you get it over my knuckle, it'll like dig into my knuckle as you're trying to pull it off. And I'm like, I'm not even going to try to put my wedding band on anymore. I just wear my silicone one. I go and buy like 3 or 4 silicone rings a year, and I change them all the time. Like, oh, I want a different color ring today. So I'll, like right now it's blue. I think it's like dark blue. Sometimes it's black. Sometimes it's green. Sometimes it's whatever. So, all right, let's see what else we got going on here. Jeffrey says lockout tagout is a good practice. Yes, it is. Of course it is. And safety is very important, but I just need to stress to everybody that I am not the perfect person that always does everything 100% correct. I always try to, but I have to be practical and know that I'm not perfect all the time. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Kenneth says Testo for the win. So be it. If you like the Testo stuff, it's all good, man. You know, I just prefer the whatever. I knew that you guys would like that when I said Chingus. There's like a whole group of my normal viewers that are like praying for me to say Chingus in another video, and I just haven't said it in probably a couple months, you know? I don't know. Just kind of comes up. My brain works weird. You know what I mean? All right. 448 and 404, same head and back pressures? Absolutely not. They're different refrigerants, different pressure temperature charts. So if we look at a pressure temperature chart, you can't see it right now, but I'm looking at 15 degrees saturation temperature. 404A is 49 psi and 448A is 38 psi. And that there's a high glide with 448A. There's a very, very minimal glide with 404. Okay. No, they are not similar in pressure. If you had to pick another refrigerant that 448A is similar to, I would say R22, but even that, there's differences. Your best bet, if you're converting from one to the other, trust me, I know there's data out there, but change the expansion valve, change the nozzle. I know that marketing data for 448A says there's no need to. You can make it work most of the time, but if you read the fine print, it says works most of the time unless you have high pressure drop stations, long line set situations, like all these different things. So basically, if they have fine print that says in certain situations you need to change the metering device and all these different things, go ahead and research that ahead of time, and more than likely you're going to need to change those devices around. But it is not just a direct drop in, take out the 404, put the 448A in there. No, it's not, okay? 448A tends to run higher discharge temperatures in low temp applications. 448A is going to use some kind of demand cooling. Let me grab one right here. This right here is basically a temperature responsive expansion valve, or a DTC valve, that mounts on the head of the compressor. It takes liquid refrigerant. This goes in the dome of the compressor. This is an expansion valve. That's all it is. And when the temperature of the head of the compressor gets to a high temp, which indicates high discharge temps, it opens this expansion valve and meters refrigerant into the head of the compressor to try to cool it off. So you're going to have some kind of demand cooling on 448A, especially in low temp situations, because when you run into those high compression ratio situations, you get some high discharge temps, and that can kill your compressor. So 448A is a good refrigerant. It works great, but in certain applications, you need to add the demand cooling into there. So you can get a temperature responsive expansion valve. You can do DTC valves. You can do capillary tube type things that cool off the compressor. But either way, it's not a direct replacement. It's not just a drop in. You just set it and forget it. That's not how it works. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got going on in here. What Vito bag do I use? Justin, that is a loaded question, dude. My everyday bag is the Vito Tech Pack with wheels. I don't know what it is. It's the one that's a backpack and it has wheels and a handle, like a suitcase rolling through the place. I use that. I have a regular Vito Tech Pack that I put all my digital probes in. I have their giant purse looking bag, I don't know what it's called, OT something or other. It's just a giant open top bag that I shove everything into to take it onto the roof. I have small bags. I have a problem with Vito products. I have way too many Vito products. So see what we got on here. Does 448A make carbon gunk when overheating? The monkey's paw. Nothing makes carbon gunk when overheating. Okay. What makes buildup is overheated oil. It's not the refrigerant per se. It's the oil being overheated, okay? So a lot of people think that 134A is a horrible refrigerant because it plugs up the cap tubes. It's not necessarily 134A. It's polyester oil being overheated because systems either aren't designed properly and or aren't maintained properly, they run high condensing temps, which leads to oil breakdown, which leads to gunk and buildup in the systems. So no, 448A does not produce gunk or anything like that, but overheated oil, yes. And remember, I just said with 448A, you tend to run higher discharge temps. Well, that's something you need to think about. You need to make sure your equipment's adequately sized. Again, you don't just throw 448A in an existing condensed unit and think it's going to be perfect. It's not necessarily. It's not a drop-in replacement. You do have to check the sizing, make sure the condenser is properly sized, make sure it has the right oil, make sure the line sizes are right, make sure the nozzle and the expansion valve's right, make sure the expansion valve's right, all that different stuff. So, all right. When and where to put a refrigerant trap. Matthew Lopez, you want to reach out to the manufacturer of said equipment, and it depends, okay? Because if you're working on a Manitowoc ice machine, they tell you only put a trap in these weird situations, but majority of the time you don't need to. If you're working on a standard refrigeration system, yeah, you're going to want to put a trap in certain situations. It depends on the length of the line set, the size of the line set, and different conditions. So you want to reach out to the manufacturers of the equipment, and they're going to advise you on what size lines you need depending on the line set run. Let me ask a question. I've asked this before, and I want honest answers on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. If you buy a refrigeration condensing unit, right? It's a 2 horsepower condensing unit, low temp, whatever, okay? And you have an evaporator downstairs. Up on the roof, the condensing unit line size is, let's just say, 1 1/8 inches. And the evaporator line size is 5/8 of an inch. What line size, if any of them, do you use? Do you use the evaporator's line size? Do you use the condenser's line size? Or do you use another one? I'm asking the chat. I'm asking the viewers. Don't be afraid to answer the question, okay? If you have a wrong answer, it's okay. We all learn together. If you have a right answer, that's great. You can help to educate someone else. So let me know in the chat. What line size do you use? I'm looking at the chat to see if anybody answers right now. So I want to see something here. I'm seeing, let's see. Trap is for oil return. That is right. Jason says that. Trap is for oil return. That is correct. Peter Smart says, I'm way too young to remember Carrier used a synthetic lube that turned into green slime. What a mess in the early 90s. Yeah, when you add different things. Yeah, of course. So, okay. So Dan says the big lines. Okay. Joe T says the manufacturer. And let's get another. We got spam bots for days in here right now, huh? All right. Cool. Good job, guys. So I'm reading through the chats. Crazy says the bigger of the two. Laska says whatever line size you were able to cut out from the neighboring system. Use the evaporator lines. Jacob says 1 1/8. Matthew Lopez says compressor size. Brian says split the difference, divide by 4, then multiply by 2. The thicker line set, the smaller. You say different because, well, then one won't be bigger or smaller. Okay, so the answer is it depends on the load, and it depends on the line set length. And depending on the load of the system and the capacity of the evaporator and the condenser, you might have multiple line set changes as you're going. So for instance, depending on how many BTUs you're moving through that system, what the capacity is going to determine the line size. So it's not what's at the condensing unit, it's not what's at the evaporator, it's whatever the capacity is, okay? And again, for oil return and pressure drop reasons, we might change that. So we might come out of the evaporator at 5/8, but we might increase the line size as it's going up. And then we might reduce the line size as it's making a horizontal run or different things. So it all comes down to the capacity of the system, how many BTUs it moves, and all that, okay? And you want to factor in oil return and different things. So you don't just use the condenser, you don't just use the evaporator. You look at the installation manual and you size the lines accordingly, okay? That is the right way to size lines. Don't just look at the line size and guess because, hey, for instance, back in the day, again, I don't do a lot of residential, but I've installed a few you know, residential style condensing units. And in order to get certain SEER ratings, Carrier wanted you to go ahead and upsize the line size, right, to 1 1/8 inch, even though it was 7/8 inch line sizes coming out, because they factored in some voodoo magic stuff and they figured out that you get more, whatever, I don't know. So it all depends on the manufacturer, and you always follow proper piping practices. Okay. Say that 3 times fast, right? All right, let's see what else we got going on in the chat. There are so many bots. Yeah, my channel is definitely attracting them, right? Traps can also require one size going into a trap and another coming out. Look at piping details for the job. That is exactly right, Jason. Exactly right. All of the above. Some old PVC. Yep, calculate with the manufacturer. That is absolutely right. You squeeze it down with channel locks so it fits. Yep. Hey, I've done that before. I mean, you don't want to do that, but there's nothing worse than being on a night job. You're making a repair and you're on the last braze joint. You realize you don't have the right reducing bushing. And you're like, well, I'm going to be a hack today. And you're going to pinch it down and make it work. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get equipment running, man. You know, especially in refrigeration. So let's see what else we got going on in the chat. I'm reading through the comments on Facebook. Let's see. Seeing anything? Nope, nothing crazy going on there. Sometimes it's a bad fuse block. Oh, you're talking about the fuses? Yeah, it could be a bad fuse block that causes a fuse to go bad. That's right. It definitely could. So I'm reading through the chat. All right, cool. Right on. Well, I'm going to wrap it up because I smell dinner cooking in the other room. My family's back, guys. My family's been gone for a week. They went on vacation. I did post on social media, and I also had a bunch of comments like, why would my family go on vacation without me? Well, here's the thing. I'm practical. It's summertime. I'm busy. I encourage my family to go on vacation in the summertime without me. A couple years back, they went for 3 weeks and they went and visited family in the East Coast and did all their things because my kids are out of school. There's no sense in them sitting at home while I'm running a business, working, busting my butt. But I can tell you what, that I try to go on vacation with them as much as possible in the downtime and in the wintertime. And we try to take little weekend trips and stuff. But yeah, my family was on vacation for the last week. They went and saw family in North Carolina and Virginia. They got to hang out with them. And I was super happy that they did that. And it's less stress for me because then I can just focus on work and not have to worry about, oh man, I'm going to not be home tonight. You know, these different things. It's just like, yeah, let's just let them go on vacation. So I always encourage my family to go do something when I'm super busy. That way, you know, I don't have to be bummed out about it. So it's just how it works. But I really appreciate you all. Thank you so very much. And I'm going to go ahead and cue up the outro music. And I will definitely catch y'all in the next one. Definitely check out the HVAC Overtime YouTube channel if you haven't already. That's a place where myself and my friends hang out on Friday evenings about 6:05 p.m. Pacific. If you haven't subscribed, look in the show notes of this. There's a link, or just look up HVAC Overtime. One thing I'm going to say for those watching on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, if you've never watched the Overtime show and you get your feelings hurt really easily and you don't like crude humor, you probably don't want to go to the show. Okay? Just be forewarned, it's pretty uncensored and it's pretty fun. So I really appreciate you all. I'm going to cue up the outro music. And if I can figure out, yeah, I think I did that one. And we will catch you all on the next one, okay? Yo. So this little guy right here, come here, buddy. Come here. Come say hi. Come say hi. Come on. Oh, this guy just turned 1 today. He's 1. Dude, that was my tongue. No, he put his tongue on my tongue. That's not cool. Because where's your tongue been today? It's probably been in places that I don't want it to be. So, hey, come back with my microphone cable. Ugh. Yeah, man, my dog is 1 year old today. August 1st was the day he was born. So he's getting huge. He's a pain in the butt, but I love him. So, all right, I'm going to cue back up the outro music. And again, we will catch you all on the next one.